On page 98 in your textbooks, figure 15.2, we have the Spanish Romantic artist Francisco Goya and the 3rd of May, 1808. I give you the longer title in the textbook, the more formal title, but it's usually just called by the date you see in the title there, the 3rd of May, 1808. Here's the story. A few sessions ago, we saw Napoleon crossing the Alps into Italy, where he defeats the kings and queens of the Italian states. Now Napoleon has turned the French army around and crossed the Pyrenees mountains and invaded Spain, where he defeats the Spanish army. He defeats the king and queen of Spain. The Spanish soldiers are defeated, but they don't stop fighting. They form themselves into small military units with no real command structure, and they harass the invading French army using what today we would call guerrilla warfare. In fact, that phrase guerrilla warfare comes out of this event. That word guerrilla is a Spanish word. It refers to these little groups of Spanish soldiers without much organization, but who attack the invading French army. Well, in retaliation for the guerrilla attacks on the French army goes into the streets of Madrid, rounds up some innocent civilians, and executes them on the 3rd of May, 1808. Well, that's the story. The romantic elements of the painting. You have, of course, the pain and suffering, all the different pain and suffering that's going on in the painting here. The fear, shock, anger, defiance, all kinds of different negative emotions. We have the political commentary. It's a violation of the rules of Western warfare to take reprisals on civilian populations for military actions, this painting clearly protesting this event here. So we have at least two major characteristics of Romanticism, and it fits very well into the Romantic movement. This is also the best place in the course to introduce you to a technique that we've seen before, although I haven't pointed it out to you before, and we'll see it again before the end of the semester. It's a technique called iconography. Now, to warn you, that word iconography has several different meanings. We're only going to use it to mean one thing in this course, but if you go on and if you get interested in art history and that kind of thing, then you'll learn several different uses of the word iconography. But in this course, we're using the word iconography in only one of its uses, using the word iconography to mean the use of a religious symbol in a secular context so that the meaning of the symbol is transferred to the new context. In fact, you might want to pause the presentation here and jot that definition down because we're going to be working down through that definition. It's a bit longer than most definitions I give you. You have probably learned by now I like short, simple definitions, but this one a little bit longer, and we'll be working our way through it. So if you haven't gotten it jotted down by now in your notes, you might hit pause and finish writing because we'll be working our way through the definition. We start the use of a religious symbol. Well, now as you look at the painting in your textbook, there are several religious symbols in the painting we could talk about. For one thing, towards the top of the painting, you see a church in the background with a bell tower, a spire on top of that bell tower. Certainly a religious symbol, but that's a religious symbol in a religious context, a spire on a church. We notice that one of the innocent civilians, excuse me, is a monk. If he's rounded up off the streets, probably a Franciscan monk. There are several different religious symbols here. There is the tonsure, the shaved top of the head that marks him as a monk. He's wearing the gray habit of a monk. He has the white rope belt called a cincture that goes around his waist. He's kneeling in an attitude of prayer. Each of these items of clothing and the haircut and all that kind of thing have symbolic meaning in the life of a monk. Here we see him again kneeling in an attitude of prayer. Definitely religious symbols that we could talk about. But again, these are religious symbols in a religious context. But as we look at the painting, there is a religious symbol which is completely divorced from any religious context. And some of you, I know, see what it is. It's the figure in the white shirt in the middle of the group of civilians here, with his arms up in that cruciform posture, the echo of the crucifixion here in the posture of the man. Well, now I know what some of you might be thinking. You might be thinking, well, this guy's been okay all semester, now he's going to get all artsy-fartsy on us. If that cruciform posture there doesn't convince you, that's what the reference is. Take a look at the palms of the man's hands there. And what do you see there in the middle of the palms of the hands? But little indentations. Little indentation there and little indentation there. Holes in the palms of the hands. Now, did you see those holes in the palms of the hands when we looked at the larger painting? Well, yes, you did. You just didn't notice them. And that's more than me just being a smart aleck. I mean, I am being a smart aleck, but there's more to it than that. That's how the technique works, you see. We'll catch up to that in a minute. But there we've got our religious symbol in a secular context. So that the meaning of the symbol, the crucifix posture, the crucifixion, the symbol, which obviously comes out of Christianity, but you don't have to be a Christian to recognize the symbol and understand what it means within a Christian context. Within a Christian context, the meaning of the crucifixion has a number of different meanings, but at root what it means is someone who's innocent is being killed because of something somebody else did. And now take a look back at that definition so that the meaning of the symbol is transferred to the new context. And do you get it? That's exactly what's going on in the painting. Innocent people are being killed because of something somebody else did. Iconography is an interesting technique. It works much more effectively than you might think. It's another way an artist has of getting inside your head and planting an idea inside your subconscious mind. Whatever your own religious beliefs might be, you recognize the symbol of the crucifixion, you know at least its root meaning within a Christian context, and subconsciously, as your conscious eye takes in all the detail, begins to try to figure out what's going on, your subconscious mind notices that cruciform posture, notices even the holes in the palms of the hand, and applies the meaning of that symbol to the scene that you see. And as hokey as it might sound at first, it is much more effective than it might sound. I've taken the opportunity in other courses to just simply show the painting, nothing at all about it, and have students jot down on a piece of scrap paper maybe a sentence or two, what do you think is going on in the painting? And at least half of the students will write down something that boils down to innocent people are being killed because of something somebody else did. Now we know who the good guys are, okay. We know, for example, these are the good guys. The light down here shines on them. We connect to the humanity in the faces here. We don't connect to the faces that are turned away from us here. I mean, consciously we can figure out who the good guys are. Nobody looks at the painting and says, all right, they got them. Everybody knows who the bad guys are. Everybody knows who the good guys are. But how do you get to that point that you believe the painting is about innocent people being killed because of something somebody else did? That's that subconscious little trick that iconography is playing in your mind. It plants that subconscious suggestion into your mind. On page 99, you have another painting by Francisco Goya. By the way, we'll see other examples of iconography in the rest of the semester. And we've seen it before, but like I said, this is just the best place to introduce you to the concept. On page 99, you have another painting by Goya, figure 15:3, Saturn devouring his children. You don't need to know an awful lot about the story here. It's just at one point Saturn, one of the Roman gods, eats his children. There's a couple different ways you can demythologize the story. Saturn is the god associated with time, so you might think about how the story is really about how time eats up what's produced, up production. Saturn is also the Roman god associated with mental depression, so you might think of the story as really being about how depression eats up what is produced, eats up production. Either way, you have the melancholic tone to the painting. You have, of course, the pain and suffering of the children as they're being eaten. And also you have that interest in the supernatural I mentioned to you as a minor characteristic. Depicting a Roman god as a big scary monster is kind of a unique idea, I think. I don't know of anyone else who's done, nothing comes to mind, quite like this. And it's kind of a unique take on the idea of the Greek and Roman gods, and it fits well into that romantic minor characteristic of the interest in the supernatural.